I was just reflecting on the fact that Jesus' teachings are never about the form. It's never focused about the form. And he never gives you the rule that relates to the form. He never gives you the behavioral rule. In A Course in Miracles, it's always about the mind, changing your mind. And it always draws you so deeply into prayer. Into forgiveness, really, into perception. It takes you so much higher and so much deeper. It's all about realizing that I've been wrong about everything, about this thought system that I have been using. I gave my trust and faith to this thought system that brings pain. And he is really addressing that, correcting our mind. And I think we have to be so mindful about how we are using Jesus' teachings, because we can take part of A Course in Miracles, take part from A Course in Miracles and generalize it in an unhelpful way. As much as it can be helpful, it can also be unhelpful. And I think one of those things would be like, I heard many times when people have hard time saying no, for example, to others, just because they apply the teachings to the form. They make it about the form, and they are saying, oh, Jesus is teaching that our brother is holy, so how can I refuse anything to him? Jesus is saying in A Course in Miracles that even if your brother is asking something outrageous, you have to say yes. And that is taken out of the context of actually the whole teaching that A Course in Miracles is offering to us, and then that is applied in an unhelpful way, generalized in an unhelpful way, and then there is this stickiness in relationships, and there is this tiredness and confusion and fogginess in the mind, because it does not allow the clarity of Jesus to come through. That does not allow for discernment and for prayer and for guidance to loosen the mind from the self-concept. Actually, the only thing that Jesus is addressing is the self-concept. And in chapter 31, in one of the sections, Jesus is actually saying that salvation's task is changing concepts. So that's what he's actually addressing all the time. He wants to loosen our self-concept, to show us slowly, to open our mind and our way of looking at ourselves and at the world and surroundings in a new way, in such a way that we're like, oh my God, I've been wrong about this, and slowly he is leading us to an ultimate realization that I've been wrong about everything, absolutely everything, and I'm completely happy with that. And then I can allow the experience of the truth to come, because my mind is so open and so clean and so empty. But then the contrast is making the teachings about the bodies as if my brother is the body that I see. And it's not only, there can be so many examples of this, and I think we have to be so mindful of that. And I think that's why everything really comes down to guidance and the practice of listening and following. Because ultimately, if we make the rule, this is what Jesus is saying. And I heard, for example, that like vegetarianism, like Jesus, based on A Course in Miracles, Jesus is teaching that you have to be vegetarian. And it's like Jesus never gives you that kind of rule that is form related, but he does give us the questions that are mind related, that help us to question our thinking and our looking at the world. And then that's why the guidance is so helpful, because based on where you are at and what is helpful for your mind training, then Jesus gives you the guidance. And it can be related to a diet, it can be related to your practice, it can be related to anything, but it comes from the guidance, because Jesus knows exactly how to reach us in a way that we can accept it, in a way that we can relate to the practice, and whatever is helpful. And if he's asking us to be a vegetarian, it's only for the mind training and never to emphasize the reality of the form. It's only for the discipline of our mind. And I've been saying this more and more and more. I have these moments when I see so clearly that Jesus is using just a form just to reach the mind, and for nothing else. Nothing else. And I think it's so important to see this, because that will allow us to open up to the guidance. Because if we think that there is a form rule, that is Jesus is the universal rule, this you should not do, then you are actually blocking the guidance. It's an actually defense against hearing the present guidance and experiencing the intimate connection that you have with the Spirit, with Jesus, with God. It's a defense against experiencing that you can hear guidance and you can follow, and it's a defense against experiencing the miracle in our mind that comes through listening, that one voice of love. And especially if we are using the teachings to make the judgment or to make the point. And when we use Jesus' teachings in a helpful way, it always brings clarity. It always comes with the experience of simplicity and upliftment. It can also challenge us, because it stretches our mind, because we are so used to thinking that we are these bodies, and Jesus brings this new perspective and new insight that loosens us from this idea that I am this body, and almost like he brings this question that is very logical, that is based on the truth, and that is pointing to the truth. And that can be challenging and quite startling even for the ego, but at the same time there is this feeling of almost like our mind is lifted from the battlefield, and there is this feeling of being disoriented, but in a helpful way, disoriented from the thinking of this world, and being lifted up, almost like going up into the sky and experiencing this vastness and limitlessness almost. And that's the perspective that where the guidance is coming from and leading to, and where teachings are coming from and leading to. So it's always about the mind, And it's always about practicing to listen, pray and listen, and then follow. Not because of the form things, that the form things need to happen, but because the following is washing away our self-concept and is washing away the fear that we are not even aware of. That's the beautiful time-saving feature of guidance. It washes away the fear that we're not even in touch, maybe, with. That's why it saves time, and that's why it, in a gentle way, it brings mind into the experience of I don't know, without bringing too much fear. That's what the guidance does. Like we're so fixated about the things that we think we know, we are sure about, and the guidance and the role of this guidance is to help us to realize that actually I do not know who I am, and then with that empty space, in that empty space, the true answer and the experience can come in that will tell us who we are. But unless as long as we are convinced we know who we are, almost like truth has no space to come in. So the guidance is like loosens the mind from that fixed idea of knowing. I know what the world is for, what the world is really about. So actually Jesus' teachings have this huge potential of completely shifting our perception and changing our thinking, rather than being fixated on the form and making the form as a rule. Rather than having that constant practice of going inward and deepening our connection. That's really what it's really about. And actually for the ego, it's so fearful that it brings up so many defenses. And I think the way the course can be used in a helpful way is just another defense against experiencing this intimacy that has no formula. It takes practice, and it takes a genuine prayer.